So welcome to the 6th annual Halloween special. This is where every October I cover samurai and Japanese movies that are on the spookier side. Usually supernatural or just pure horror. And what better way than to start with a Takashi Miike film. And his 100th film is 2017's Blade of the Immortal. And Takashi Miike is just one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. He has a type of rebellious nature to him. But he is kind of unfairly typecasted as a director that just makes shocking content. He's mostly known for his extreme films like Ichi the Killer, Audition, Visitor Q. But he's actually done plenty of films that weren't like that at all. Check out The Bird People of China. But it's funny because even in the Suda51 game, No More Heroes 3, there's a few segments where the characters in that just talk about Miike films, and they kind of act like they're just films that are just super violent and hardcore.
What's the most fucked up Miike film?
Audition, right?
I'd say, Visitor Q.
Oh shit.
So that's definitely his name brand for sure, and really what he's known for. And Blade of the Immortal definitely fits in with that category. It is ultra-violent, it's very bloody, just how we like it. But it feels like a film that could only be made by someone with a long career in filmmaking, and someone with just a lot of life experience. In a sense, the film is about a man going through routine after routine, going forward through life, trudging along, no longer even wanting to live. Of course, I'm not suggesting that Miike is sick of filmmaking, because, he's definitely not. This is evidenced by the fact that he's made 8 films since Blade of the Immortal in 2017. But Blade of the Immortal itself requires the hand of an experienced director. And they definitely don't get much more experience than someone who's made 100 films. So, Blade of the Immortal is based on the manga of the same name, created by Hiroyuki Samara, and it tells the story of Manji, played by Takuya Kimura. He's a samurai who is both blessed and cursed with immortality, bloodworms that were given to him that revive him of all of his wounds. But he's not immortal in the superhero sense of the word, but an immortal in the way of a ghost. He's forced to stay in this world, and also to forever regret his sins, mostly with the fact that he failed to save his little sister. Of course, Manji gets another chance to matter to someone when he's found a girl named Rin Asano. And this is after her parents are killed by a group of assassins who are trying to change the way of the samurai. So I just gotta mention how this film has one of the best openings ever. Immediately you're engaged with everything that's going on in the story. And I love how it transitions from black and white to color. And the black and white that they used definitely was a nice callback to the old school samurai flicks. And I've heard for a long time that the Blade of the Immortal manga that this is based on is excellent. I've even heard some say that it's the best story having to do with samurai. And I did pick up the first of the really big omnibus books, and it covers the first 3 volumes. And so far I think it's really good, and I'll definitely be picking up more. And yes, some aspects are already different from the film, like the opening and just how he gets his immortality. But the manga itself is 30 volumes long, so this movie is just going to be a small fraction of the real story. But they did make this movie surprisingly long. It's over 2 hours long, but it's paced very well. There's just a lot of action and fights, so I didn't feel the runtime at all. But without spoiling anything, I will say that the movie does seem to end the story that it's telling. And I'm not sure if the manga ends the same way, or if this is just a chapter and it does continue afterwards. so I can't really answer that yet. But the film doesn't end on a cliffhanger, I'll just say. I also really like the actor Takuya Kimura, who plays Manji in this. I grew to really like him as an actor in the Miyamoto Musashi series, which I recently reviewed. And I'll just say he plays this character perfectly. As good as a character in the manga. And he really does portray a man who's stuck at the age of 26, but has been alive for generations. You know, if you could just picture what that would be like, he does that perfectly. And I also like how there's little aspects to him as a character, and this is also in the manga, but his sword skills have deteriorated a little bit over the years, just because he now fights knowing that he can't die. Because it seems like in the beginning he was a lot better, and later on he takes a lot more hits. But he does still feel pain, so it adds to the character, and you still root for him. Even though he's immortal, it's still suspenseful and exciting. The other actor who almost steals the show is Soda Fukushi. This is the man who leads the assassins who killed Rin's father. And he comes from a different school of swordplay, and he represents a darker, more violent future for the samurai warrior. And forms of combat become a major issue in this story. Especially just as more and more styles are introduced, and also just the politics between the different rivaling schools. And that becomes a major aspect of the story as well. For example, Manji is a practitioner of a very old and lost style. And again, only an experienced filmmaker like Miike would be able to portray this. And he does it very well. Of course, Blade of the Immortal isn't all about codes and politics, so don't worry. It's mostly about blood and guts. And this is a Miike that was a lot closer to more of the ultra-violent style we got in the 90s and early 2000s. And that's something that's been gone for a long time. So it's a nice return to form. I also like how episodic this feels. It basically breaks down to a series of one-on-one fights, first with Manji, and for at least the first hour, the members of the Onatsu's team of assassins. And these are just wild fights, you know, don't expect anything grounded, very supernatural powers, wire-based combat, geysers of blood. I just like how Miike finds a way to make these one-on-one fights very distinct from one another, and of course very memorable. And there's interesting aspects like how one of the characters shares a key trait with Manji. There's another who cries remorseful tears after she kills. And there's one that just looks like a walking nightmare with human body parts strapped to him. You know, these are really just interesting character designs and enemies. And Miike really just accelerates the combat by giving us multi-enemy battle sequences, you know, rivers of blood. And hundreds of people just die in this movie, most of them losing limbs that we see, or just cut in two. You know, it's just pure samurai action. And it's really a must-see if you're into that kind of thing. So if you just want to change it up from something serious to something more supernatural and fun, then definitely check this out. And it definitely is a well-made film. You know, it's interesting to watch this knowing it was made by someone who made 100 films. And if you end up liking it, definitely check out the excellent manga. It'll give you a lot more content. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of Blade of the Immortal. Let me know if you like the manga, if you read it, and how does this film hold up to that? Anyway, thanks for watching.